Ambassador had traveled across 17 star systems in his long career. He had seen the great crystal towers of the. He had walked through the living forests of 6. He had even visited the ancient ruins of the first builders on the dead moon of. But nothing in all his travels had prepared him for this moment. He stood on the observation deck of Station Gamma 7, looking down at the blue and green world below. The planet was called New, a human colony of 3 million people. 2 days ago, they had invaded. Now the humans were coming to take it back. "You seem nervous, Ambassador," said Commander Hana. She was a small woman with short black hair and calm eyes. She wore the gray uniform of the Human Defense Force, and she moved with the quiet confidence of someone who had seen many battles. "I am not nervous," replied. His translator device turned his clicking sounds into human words. "I am curious. My people have known humans for 40 years. We have traded with you. We have signed treaties with you, but we have never seen you fight." Hana nodded slowly. "There's a reason for that, Ambassador. We don't like to fight, we really don't, but when we have to—" She paused and looked out the window. "Well, that's why you're here. The Council wanted to understand why humans have a certain reputation." 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Yes, he knew about the reputation. Every species in the galaxy had heard the stories. They had conquered 12 worlds in the past decade. They had never lost a war. They were fast, brutal, and showed no mercy to their enemies. But even they spoke of humans with something that sounded like fear. The Ambassador had not believed it. How could anyone fear humans? They were so soft, so emotional. They cried at sad stories. They kept small animals as companions. They spent enormous resources caring for their sick and elderly instead of letting nature take its course. Surely such a species could not be dangerous. "How many soldiers are you sending?" asked. 8,000, Hana answered. Made a sound of disbelief. 8,000. They have 50,000 warriors on that planet. Your people will be destroyed. Hana smiled, but there was no humor in it. "Ambassador, I've read your file. You've observed many military operations. You've seen them defend their borders. You've watched the fight their civil war. You think you understand combat." "I have seen much death," agreed. "But you've never seen humans fight," Hana said. "What you're about to witness will change everything you think you know about us. I want you to watch carefully. I want you to report everything to your council. And I want you to understand why, in 40 years of contact with other species, no one has ever declared war on Earth." A door opened behind them, and 3 more humans entered the observation deck. They were dressed in the black armor of the Human Defense Force ground troops. One was a tall man with a serious face. Another was a younger man with a quick smile. The third was a woman with her hair tied back in a tight braid. "Commander," the tall man said with a salute. "Lieutenant Ho reporting. My squad is ready for deployment." Hana returned the salute. "At ease, Lieutenant. I wanted you to meet our guest before you drop. This is Ambassador of the Alliance. He'll be observing the operation." Ho looked at the alien with curious eyes. "Ambassador, I hope we don't disappoint you." "I am told your people are fearsome warriors," said, "but I confess I do not see it. You seem very ordinary." The younger man laughed. "Ordinary, I like that. What do you think, ah?" The woman with the braid smiled. "I think the Ambassador will change his mind soon enough." 1. Studied them carefully. They did not look like warriors. They looked like friends going on a trip together. One was making jokes about the food in the mess hall. Was checking a small device on her wrist. Ho was looking at a photograph he kept in his pocket. "What is that?" asked, pointing at the photograph. Ho showed it to him. It was a picture of 2 small children, a boy and a girl, standing in front of a house with a red door. "My children," Ho said, "and me, they're 7 and 5. "You bring images of your offspring into battle," was confused. "Does this not distract you? Does it not make you afraid to die?" Ho put the photograph back in his pocket. "It makes me afraid to lose, Ambassador. There's a difference. An alarm sounded through the station. Red lights began to flash. That's our signal, Hana said. Lieutenant, get your people to the operation begins in 30 minutes. Ho saluted again. Yes, Commander. Ambassador, I hope you watch closely. You wanted to know why humans inspire fear. You're about to find out. The three soldiers left the observation deck, watched them go, still not understanding. They had been laughing and joking just moments ago. How could such people be dangerous? Commander Hana, he said, I must be honest with you. I do not believe 8,000 humans can defeat 50,000. I think you are sending your people to their deaths. Hana walked to a control panel and pressed several buttons. The large screen on the wall came to life, showing a view of the planet below. Could see the smoke rising from the burning cities. He could see the ships patrolling the skies. Ambassador, Hana said quietly, they made a terrible mistake when they attacked Nu. They killed 400 civilians in the first wave. Women, children, elderly. They broadcast the attack across all channels, trying to frighten us into surrender. A common tactic, observed. Fear is an effective weapon. For most species, yes, Hana agreed. But not for humans. You see, Ambassador, we have a strange reaction to fear. When someone threatens what we love, we don't become afraid. We become angry, and there is nothing in this galaxy more dangerous than an angry human. Looked at the burning planet below. He thought about Lieutenant Ho and his photograph of his children. He thought about the jokes and the laughter. I think, he said slowly, that I am about to learn something very important. Hana nodded. Yes, Ambassador, you are. And when this is over, you will understand why even they should have known better than to make humans angry. The first began to launch from the station's hangar bays. They fell toward the planet like silver rain, carrying 8,000 humans toward a battle that no one in the galaxy expected them to win. Watched them fall, and for the first time in his long life he felt something he could not name. It was not quite fear. It was not quite excitement. It was something in between, something that made his 4 hearts beat a little faster. He was about to see humans take the battlefield, and somewhere deep in his ancient mind, a small voice whispered that nothing would ever be the same again. The shook as it entered the atmosphere of Nu. Inside, 40 soldiers sat in 2 long rows, their backs against the metal walls. Lieutenant Ho stood at the front, holding a rail above his head to keep his balance. Listen up, he said, his voice cutting through the roar of the engines. We're dropping into Sector 7. Intel says there are about 2,000 between us and the civilian shelter. Our job is simple. We clear the path. We get those people out. We don't stop until they're safe. One raised his hand. Sir, what's the enemy's strength around the shelter? At least 500, Ho answered. They've been using the civilians as shields. They think we won't attack if innocent people might get hurt. They don't know us very well, said Ah. She was checking her medical kit, making sure everything was in place. As the squad's combat medic, she would be running toward wounded soldiers while everyone else was running away from danger. Ho looked at his soldiers. They were young, most of them. The oldest was 32. The youngest was 19. They came from different cities, different families, different lives. But in this moment they were one thing only. They were human soldiers going to war. I know what some of you are thinking, Ho said. You're thinking about home. You're thinking about the people waiting for you. That's good. Hold on to that. But I need you to remember something else too. He pulled out his photograph and held it up. Down there in that shelter there are children just like mine. There are mothers and fathers who haven't slept in 2 days because they're afraid of what's coming through the door. They're counting on us. They don't know our names. They don't know our faces. But they believe that someone is coming to save them. The soldiers listened in silence. So when we hit the ground, Ho continued, I want you to fight like their lives depend on it. Because they do. Up on Station Gamma 7, Ambassador watched the descent through the clouds. Commander Hana stood beside him, her arms folded across her chest. "May I ask you something, Commander?" said. "Of course." "Why do your soldiers carry images of their families? In my culture, warriors leave all personal items behind before battle. Emotional attachments are considered dangerous." Hana thought for a moment before answering. "In your culture, what motivates a warrior to fight?" "Duty," said. "Honor, the command of their superiors." "And if a warrior is afraid, what keeps them fighting?" "Training, discipline, fear of punishment." Hana nodded slowly. "That's the difference, Ambassador. Our soldiers don't fight because they're ordered to. They don't fight because they're afraid of what happens if they run. They fight because they have something to protect, something they love more than their own lives." "But surely that makes them weaker," argued. "A soldier who fears losing their family will be more likely to surrender, to choose life over victory." "You would think so," Hana said. "Every species thinks so, but humans are strange creatures, Ambassador. When you threaten what we love, we don't become careful, we become reckless. We don't try to survive, we try to destroy whatever is threatening us, no matter the cost." She pointed at the screen, where they were now visible as tiny dots against the brown and gray landscape of the war zone. "Those soldiers know they might die today. Every single one of them knows. But they're not thinking about that. They're thinking about the children in that shelter. They're thinking about their own children at home. And they're thinking about what they would want someone to do if their families were the ones trapped." The first touched down in a ruined street. The doors opened, and soldiers poured out like water from a broken dam. Even from orbit, could see them moving with purpose, spreading out into defensive positions. "Your Lieutenant Ho said. He showed me the picture of his children. He said he was not afraid to die. He said he was afraid to lose. What did he mean?" Hana smiled, but it was a sad smile. "He meant that dying is easy, Ambassador. Dying is over in a second. But losing, living with the knowledge that you could have saved someone and didn't, that you were too slow, too scared, too weak, that haunts you forever. So humans fight harder because they fear living with failure more than they fear death itself." "Something like that," Hana agreed. "We're complicated creatures. We're capable of great kindness and great violence. The same man who reads bedtime stories to his daughter can become a monster on the battlefield. The same woman who cries at a sad movie can kill without hesitation to protect the innocent." His four eyes watched the screen intently. The human soldiers were advancing now, moving through the ruined buildings. He could see flashes of weapons fire as they engaged the scouts. "Commander, I have studied thee extensively," said. "They are powerful warriors. They feel no fear. They show no mercy. They have never been defeated in open battle." "I know," Hana said quietly. "And yet you do not seem worried." Hana turned to face him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held something fierce and ancient. "Ambassador, they don't understand what they've done. They attacked our colony. They killed our people. They showed videos of dying children and expected us to be afraid." She stepped closer to him, and despite himself, felt a chill run through his body. "They are strong because they feel nothing. They fight with cold efficiency because there is nothing inside them that burns. But humans, we are filled with fire, Ambassador. Every memory of those we love, every image of those children they killed, every thought of the families waiting in that shelter, it all becomes fuel." "Fuel for what?" "Rage," Hana said simply. "Pure, burning, unstoppable rage. They made the same mistake every enemy has made when facing humans. They thought our emotions made us weak. They thought our love for each other was a vulnerability to exploit." On the screen, the battle was intensifying. Could see the human soldiers pushing forward despite heavy fire. One soldier fell, and immediately two others dragged him to cover while a third provided suppressing fire. They worked together like a single organism, each part protecting the others. "What are they finding out instead?" asked. Hana turned back to the screen. Her reflection overlaid the image of the battle, making it look like she was standing among the soldiers. "They're finding out that our love is not a weakness to exploit. It's a weapon, the most powerful weapon in the galaxy. And today, Ambassador, that weapon is pointed directly at them." The human advance continued. Building by building, street by street, they pushed the back, watched in growing amazement as soldiers who should have been overwhelmed instead fought with a ferocity he had never witnessed in any species. He thought about Lieutenant Ho and his photograph. He thought about the jokes one had made. He thought about checking her medical supplies with careful hands. These were the same people, the laughing friends, the loving parents, the soft, emotional humans. But they were not soft now. They were not emotional. They were something else entirely. Something that made four hearts race with a feeling he was only beginning to understand. For the first time in his life, Ambassador of the Alliance was looking at humanity's true face, and it terrified him. The streets of Nu were filled with smoke and fire. Buildings that had once been homes now stood as broken skeletons against the gray sky. Somewhere in the distance, weapons fired in rapid bursts, and the ground shook with explosions. Lieutenant Ho led his squad through the ruins of what had been a shopping district. Store signs hung broken from their posts. Glass crunched under their boots. A child's toy lay abandoned in the middle of the street, its bright colors strange and wrong in this place of destruction. "Contact ahead," whispered Private Bai from her position at point. She was the youngest in the squad, just 19 years old, but her eyes were steady and her voice was calm. 12, fortified position. They're blocking the main road to the shelter. Ho moved up beside her and looked through his scope. They were exactly where Intel had said they would be. They had built barriers from rubble and burned vehicles. Their weapons were pointed down the street, waiting for the humans to come. "They know we're coming," one said quietly. "They're expecting a frontal assault." "Then we won't give them one," Ho replied. He studied the surrounding buildings, nodding windows, doorways, and gaps in the walls. "Bai, take Fire Team 2 through that building on the left. Come at them from the side. 1, you and Fire Team 3 circle around to the right. Use the smoke for cover." "And you, sir?" I asked. Ho smiled, but it was not the friendly smile from before. It was something sharper, colder. "Fire Team 1 stays with me. We walk right down the middle of the street." "That's suicide," Bai said. "That's a distraction," Ho corrected. "They'll be so focused on us that they won't see you coming until it's too late. Move fast. Hit hard. Don't give them time to think." The squad split up without another word. They had trained for this. They had prepared for this. Each soldier knew their role and trusted the others to do theirs. Up on Station Gamma 7, Ambassador leaned closer to the screen. The video feed from Lieutenant Ho's helmet camera showed everything in sharp detail. He watched as the 3 soldiers walked calmly down the center of the street, their weapons raised, their steps measured and deliberate. "What is he doing?" demanded. "This is madness. They're walking directly into enemy fire." Commander Hana said nothing. She simply watched. They opened fire. Energy bolts screamed through the air, striking the ground around Ho and his team. But the 3 soldiers did not run. They did not duck for cover. They walked forward, returning fire with precise, controlled shots. "They're drawing attention," Hana said finally. "Watch the flanks." Shifted his attention to the other camera feeds. He saw Bai's team moving through the ruined building, silent as shadows. He saw one's team approaching from the other side, using the smoke and debris for cover. They never saw them coming. The attack happened all at once. Fire Team 2 burst through a window on the left. Fire Team 3 emerged from the smoke on the right. And Fire Team 1, led by Ho, charged straight ahead. The position collapsed in seconds. 12 enemy soldiers fell before they could even turn to face the new threats. Incredible, breathed. The coordination, the timing, how do they communicate so perfectly? "They don't need to communicate," Hana explained. "They know each other. They've trained together, eaten together, lived together. Each soldier knows what the others will do before they do it. That's what makes human units so dangerous. We don't just fight as individuals, we fight as families. The squad regrouped and continued their advance. Notice something strange about them now. Earlier on the station they had been warm and friendly. They had laughed and joked. But now, watching them move through the ruins, he saw no emotion at all. Their faces were blank. Their movements were mechanical. They looked like machines wearing human skin. "What happened to them?" asked. "They seem different." Hana nodded slowly. "You're seeing the transformation, Ambassador. It's something humans do when we go to war. We put away our emotions. We lock them up somewhere safe inside ourselves. What you're seeing now is the soldier underneath, the predator that lives inside every human." This is what the galaxy fears, realized. Partly, Hana agreed. But only partly. The true fear comes from knowing that the transformation goes both ways. These cold, efficient killers. They're also the laughing friends who make jokes about mess hall food. They're the loving parents who carry pictures of their children. The same hands that are taking lives right now will go home and hold their families with perfect gentleness. Struggled to understand. How can both things be true? How can a creature be so warm and so cold at the same time? We don't fight despite our emotions, Ambassador. We fight because of them. Every shot those soldiers fire is powered by love. Every step they take toward that shelter is driven by the faces of the people waiting inside. They've turned their hearts into weapons. On the screen, the squad encountered another patrol. This time, the enemy had the advantage. They were on higher ground, with better cover and more numbers. A normal force would have retreated to find another route. The humans attacked. Private Bai took a hit to her leg. She fell, blood spreading across the broken street. But before any could finish her, Ah was there. The combat medic dragged Bai behind a fallen wall while returning fire with her sidearm. Her hands were steady as she worked on the wound, never stopping, never hesitating. "She's treating an injury while fighting," observed with amazement. "How is that possible?" "Training," Hana said, "and something more. Ah knows that Bai has a mother waiting for her on Earth. She knows that if Bai dies, someone will have to tell that mother her daughter isn't coming home, so Ah will not let that happen. She will not fail." The battle raged for several minutes. Ho coordinated his squad with hand signals and quick commands. They moved like water flowing around stones, always finding gaps, always pressing forward. One by one, they fell. When it was over, the humans stood among the bodies of their enemies. They were breathing hard. Some were wounded, but every single one of them was still standing. Ho checked on Bai. "Can she move?" Ah nodded. "I've stopped the bleeding. She'll need proper treatment soon, but she can walk." "Good," Ho looked at his squad. "The shelter is 2 blocks away. We're almost there. Anyone who can't continue, stay here and wait for extraction. No shame in it." No one moved. Not even Bai, who was pale from blood loss and leaning heavily on one for support. "Sir," she said through gritted teeth, "those people are waiting for us. I can rest when they're safe." Ho looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded once, a gesture of respect and understanding. "All right," he said. "Everyone together, let's finish this." They moved out, leaving the bodies behind. Watched them go, these strange, terrifying creatures who could switch from warmth to coldness and back again. He understood now why the galaxy feared them. It wasn't their technology. It wasn't their numbers. It wasn't even their skill in battle. It was their hearts. Their terrible, beautiful, dangerous hearts that turned love into fury and fury into victory. Commander Hana stood silently beside him, watching the same feed. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes were shining with something that might have been pride. "Almost there," she whispered, "just a little further." The squad disappeared around a corner, moving toward the shelter and the civilians waiting inside. The hardest part of the battle was still to come, but watching them advance had no doubt about the outcome. They had made a terrible mistake. They had awakened something ancient and fierce and utterly human, and now they were going to pay the price. The civilian shelter was a large building made of reinforced concrete. Before the war, it had been a community center where families gathered for celebrations and children played in the big open halls. Now it was surrounded by soldiers, and the 500 civilians inside had not seen sunlight in 3 days. Lieutenant Ho's squad reached the final street before the shelter. They crouched behind a collapsed wall, studying the enemy positions. What they saw was not good. "I count over 200, one reported, his voice tight with concern. "They've built a perimeter around the entire building. Multiple heavy weapons, anti-air turrets. They're expecting an assault." "They're using the civilians as shields," Bai said, anger breaking through her pain. "If we attack, they'll threaten to kill hostages." Ho was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he activated his communication device. "Alpha Company, this is Echo Squad. We're at the shelter. Report status." The reply came immediately. "Echo Squad, this is Alpha Company. We've reached the western approach. Bravo and Charlie companies are in position at the north and south. Delta Company is holding the eastern perimeter. All units ready for assault." 200 against 8,000 humans. The numbers were still against them across the entire battlefield, but here, at this shelter, the advantage was shifting. "Coordinate attack in 5 minutes, Ho ordered. "All companies hit at once. Draw their fire outward. Echo Squad will punch through to the shelter doors." "Understood. Good luck, Echo." Ho turned to his soldiers. They were tired. Some were wounded. All of them had been fighting for hours. But when he looked in their eyes, he saw no thought of surrender. "This is it," he said. "Inside that building are mothers holding their children. There are elderly people who can't run. There are families who have been praying for 3 days that someone would come to save them. We are their answer." He pulled out his photograph one more time, looking at the faces of his own children. "My daughter Mi asked me something before I left Earth. She asked me why I had to go fight when I could just stay home and be safe with her. You know what I told her?" The squad waited. "I told her that somewhere far away there was another little girl just like her, and that little girl was scared and waiting for someone to help her. I told her that if she was ever in trouble, I would want someone to come help her too. So I had to go, because that's what good people do." He put the photograph away. "Those children in that shelter, they're waiting for us. Their parents are praying for us, and we are not going to let them down, not today, not ever." Up on Station Gamma 7, Ambassador watched as the 5-minute timer counted down. Commander Hana had been joined by other officers, all of them watching the screens with intense focus. "What you're about to see," Hana said quietly, "is why no one attacks human colonies anymore. After today, they will understand what every other species has learned the hard way." "What is that?" asked. "That humans don't just fight to win. We fight to protect. And there is nothing in this galaxy that can stop us when we're protecting our own." The timer reached 0. The attack began from all directions at once. Human soldiers emerged from the ruins like a rising tide. They poured fire into the perimeter, forcing the enemy to divide their attention. The heavy weapons turned outward, trying to push back the assault. And in that moment of distraction, Echo Squad moved. Ho led the charge personally. He ran straight toward the shelter doors, his weapon blazing. Soldiers turned to face him, but one and all were there, cutting them down before they could aim. Bai, despite her wound, provided covering fire from a flanking position. A warrior stepped into Ho's path, raising a blade. Ho didn't slow down. He met the alien with his bare hands, grappling with a strength that seemed impossible for a creature his size. They struggled for a moment, and then Ho threw the aside and kept running. "Impossible," gasped. "They are twice the size of humans. How can he match them in strength?" "Adrenaline," Hana explained. "Fear, rage, Love. All of it floods through our bodies and gives us power beyond our normal limits. Human soldiers have been documented lifting vehicles to save wounded comrades. They've been seen fighting with injuries that should have killed them. In battle, we become something more than flesh and blood. The shelter doors were ahead. A group formed a defensive line, determined to stop the human advance. There were 10 of them, all armed, all ready to die rather than let the humans through. Ho didn't hesitate, he charged. What followed was not a battle, it was a storm. Echo Squad hit the line like a force of nature. Weapons fired at point-blank range. Fists and blades struck from every direction. The humans fought without fear, without hesitation, without mercy. Ah took a hit to her shoulder but kept fighting. She dropped her rifle and pulled out a knife, closing with the nearest enemy. One grabbed and used the alien's body as a shield while firing at others. Ho moved through the chaos like a ghost, leaving fallen enemies behind him. In 30 seconds it was over. 10 lay dead. Echo Squad was still standing. Ho reached the shelter doors and pounded on them with his fist. Human Defense Force, open up, you're safe now. There was a long moment of silence. Then slowly, the doors began to open. The first face Ho saw was a little girl, maybe 7 years old, with tear stains on her cheeks and terror in her eyes. She looked up at him with disbelief. "Are you here to save us?" she asked in a tiny voice. Ho knelt down so he was at her level. His armor was dented and scorched. His face was covered in dirt and blood. But when he smiled at her, it was the warmest smile in the galaxy. "Yes, little one," he said gently. "We're here to take you home." The little girl burst into tears and threw her arms around his neck. Ho held her carefully, this fragile, precious thing that weighed almost nothing but meant everything. Behind her, more civilians emerged, mothers clutching bobbies, elderly people supporting each other, fathers with hollow eyes suddenly bright with hope. They looked at the human soldiers like they were looking at angels. "Is it over?" an old man asked. "Are we really safe?" "It's over," Ho promised. "They are running. Our people have broken their lines across the entire sector. You're going to be okay." On Station Gamma 7, Ambassador watched the scene through eyes that suddenly felt wet. He had seen many things in his long life. He had witnessed empires rise and fall, but he had never seen anything like this. A soldier covered in the blood of his enemies, kneeling to comfort a frightened child. The same hands that had killed moments ago now holding that child with perfect tenderness. The same face that had shown no mercy in battle now showing only kindness and warmth. "I understand now," said softly. "I finally understand." Hana looked at him. "What do you understand, Ambassador?" "Why the galaxy fears humans. It's not because you are violent. Many species are violent. It's not because you are skilled. Many species are skilled." He paused, struggling to find the right words. "It's because you can be both things at once, warriors and parents, killers and healers. You switch between them so easily, so completely, that no one can predict what you will do." "We don't switch, Ambassador," Hana corrected gently. "We're always both. The love we feel makes us fight. The fighting we do is an act of love. They're not separate things. They're the same thing seen from different angles." On the screen, the civilians were being escorted out of the shelter. Human soldiers surrounded them, forming a protective wall. Some soldiers carried children. Others supported the elderly. Ah was treating wounded civilians with the same care she would give her own family. The Battle of Nu was not over yet. But in this moment, in this small corner of the war, the humans had already won something more important than territory. They had saved their people. They had protected the innocent. They had proven once again why humanity was feared across the stars. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy what true strength really looked like. 3 days after the battle, the war was over. They had not just lost Nu, they had been completely destroyed. Of the 50,000 warriors they had brought to the planet, fewer than 8,000 had survived to surrender. The rest had fallen before the human advance, broken by a fury they had never expected and could not withstand. Ambassador stood in the main plaza of News Capital City. Around him, workers were already clearing rubble and beginning repairs. Children played in the streets, their laughter strange and beautiful after so many days of silence. Life was returning to the colony, slowly but surely. Commander Hana walked up beside him. She looked tired but peaceful. The weight she had carried during the battle seemed to have lifted from her shoulders. "The leadership has requested peace talks," she said. "They're offering to return all conquered territories and pay compensation to the families of those killed in the invasion." "They're afraid," observed. "They should be. We've made it very clear what happens to those who attack our colonies." Hana paused. "But we don't want their fear, Ambassador. We want their respect. We want them to understand that humans don't start wars, we end them." 4 eyes watched the children playing. One of them was the little girl from the shelter, the one who had hugged Lieutenant Ho. She was running and laughing with other children, as if the nightmare of the past week had never happened. "Where is Lieutenant Ho?" asked. "He's at the medical center. His squad is there too, getting treatment for their injuries." Hana smiled slightly. Ho already called his children on Earth. His daughter asked him if he saved the other little girl. He told her yes. "The transformation you spoke about," said slowly. "The switch from warrior to parent, from killer to protector. I've been thinking about it constantly since the battle." "And what have you concluded?" Was quiet for a long moment, gathering his thoughts. "In my culture," he began, "we believe that emotion weakens a warrior. We train our soldiers to feel nothing, to be pure instruments of war. We thought this made us strong. We thought this made us superior. But watching your people fight, I realized we were wrong." "How so?" "Your soldiers felt everything. They felt fear. They felt love. They felt rage and sorrow and hope. These emotions did not weaken them. They made them invincible. A soldier who fights for duty will stop when the duty becomes too hard. A soldier who fights for love will never stop, no matter how hard things become." Hana nodded. "That's a good way to put it." "But there's something else," continued. "Something even more important. Your soldiers didn't just fight harder because of their emotions. They fought smarter. They fought together. Each one willing to die for the others, each one trusting the others completely. That level of coordination, that unity of purpose, it can only come from genuine care for one another." "We call it brotherhood," Hana said, "or sisterhood, or simply family. The people we serve with become our family even if we share no blood. We would die for them without hesitation, and they would die for us." Turned to face her directly. "Commander, I must confess something. Before this mission, I did not believe the stories about human warriors. I thought they were exaggerations, myths created to frighten other species. I thought humans were soft, weak, too emotional to be truly dangerous." "Many species think that," Hana said without offense. "I was a fool," admitted. "What I witnessed in this battle was unlike anything I have ever seen. Your soldiers were wounded and kept fighting. They were outnumbered and never retreated. They faced certain death and smiled because they knew they were protecting something precious." He looked back at the children in the plaza. "That is not weakness, Commander. That is strength beyond anything my people have ever achieved. You are not dangerous despite your emotions. You are dangerous because of them." Hana followed his gaze to the children. The little girl from the shelter had fallen while running, scraping her knee. She was crying, and immediately several adults rushed to help her. They picked her up, comforted her, cleaned her wound with gentle hands. "See that?" Hana said. "That's why we fight. That right there. So that little girl can fall down and cry about a scraped knee instead of crying because her whole world has been destroyed. So that her biggest worry is a small wound that will heal in a few days, instead of whether she'll live to see tomorrow." "It is beautiful," said quietly, terrifying but beautiful. A transport ship descended from the sky and landed at the edge of the plaza. The doors opened, and a line of prisoners emerged, their hands bound, their heads bowed. Human soldiers escorted them toward a waiting transport vehicle. Watch the prisoners carefully. These were the same warriors who had terrorized the galaxy for years. They had conquered worlds. They had destroyed entire civilizations. But now they walked with their heads down, defeat written in every line of their bodies. As they passed, one of them looked up and met's eyes. The ambassador saw something there that he had never seen in a before. Fear. Not the fear of death. They did not fear death. This was something deeper, something more profound. It was the fear of having discovered that everything they believed about themselves was wrong. They had thought they were the strongest species in the galaxy. They had thought their lack of emotion made them invincible. They had been utterly mistaken. They looked away, unable to hold his gaze. A moment later they were gone, loaded into the transport and taken away to face justice for their crimes. What will happen to them? Asked. They'll be tried for war crimes, Hana answered. The ones who killed civilians will be punished. The rest will eventually be returned to there. We don't believe in destroying entire species for the actions of their leaders. That is merciful. It's practical. We want them to remember what happened here. We want them to go home and tell their people that humans are not to be threatened, that our colonies are not to be touched, that our children are not to be harmed. Hana's voice was calm but firm. Fear can be a tool, ambassador. Used wisely, it prevents future wars. The transport ship lifted off and disappeared into the sky. The plaza returned to its peaceful state, filled with the sounds of reconstruction and hope. I will return to my people now, said finally. I will report everything I have witnessed here. The council will hear the truth about humanity. And what truth is that? Hana asked. Consider the question carefully before answering. That humans are the most paradoxical species in the galaxy. You are capable of infinite kindness and terrible violence. You build societies based on love and cooperation, yet you produce warriors who can break any army. You cherish peace, yet you are unmatched in war. You are soft and hard, gentle and fierce all at the same time. He paused. And because of this, you should never be underestimated, never threatened, never attacked. Because when humans go to war, they bring something with them that no other species possesses. They bring their hearts, and hearts full of love, ambassador, are the most dangerous weapons in the universe. Hana smiled warmly. I think your council will understand. I hope so, said. For the sake of my people and every other species in the galaxy, I truly hope so. He began to walk toward his shuttle, then stopped and turned back one last time. Commander Hana, thank you. Thank you for showing me what humans truly are. I came here expecting to see monsters. Instead, I found something far more remarkable. I found heroes. Hana bowed her head slightly in acknowledgement. Safe travels, ambassador. May your people find peace. Left knew that day with a new understanding burning in his mind. He had seen humans take the battlefield. He had watched them transform from laughing friends into cold warriors and back again. He had witnessed love become fury and fury become victory. And he knew, with absolute certainty, that the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Because the humans had shown their true face at last, not the soft, emotional creatures that others had dismissed, but something ancient and powerful and utterly unstoppable. They were humanity, and now everyone knew why that name inspired fear.